3 days before Christmas, my son called and told me not to come. He said it gently, almost politely. "Dad, maybe skip this year. Kara's parents need space." Space. In the very house I've been paying $3,940 a month for since 2021. I didn't argue. I didn't remind him whose signature helped him get that 3.1% rate when his credit wasn't strong enough on its own. I just said, "I understand." After I hung up, I sat in my car outside my condo and opened my banking app. The auto pay was scheduled for December 23rd, same as it had been for 60 straight months. I hovered over the button that said cancel payment. 5 years of covering the mortgage, 5 years of telling myself it was temporary, 5 years of believing help was the same as love. That night, I clicked confirm, and for the first time in a long while, I did nothing else. Welcome to Final Act Revenge, ladies and gentlemen. Please note, this story contains fictionalized elements created for educational and entertainment purposes. Before we go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. And don't forget to take care of yourself. Because what happened after that canceled payment changed everything. My name is Richard Butterworth. I am 68 years old, and for most of my life I worked in risk assessment for a regional bank in Columbus, Ohio. I spent 3 decades studying numbers, reading fine print, and telling other people where the danger was hiding. What I never expected was that the greatest risk of my life would not be a commercial loan or a failing business. It would be my own son. Back in 1992, I lost everything. I signed as a guarantor for my older brother when his construction company ran into trouble. I believed family meant stepping in without hesitation. Within a year, the business collapsed. The bank came after both of us. I sold my house, liquidated my retirement, and spent almost a decade climbing out of debt. That experience shaped me. I learned that help without boundaries turns into quiet self-destruction. I promised myself I would never sign another document unless I was prepared to own the outcome. And yet, in 2019, when Logan sat across from me at my kitchen table and said, "Dad, I just need a little help to get started," I felt that old instinct rise again. Logan was 32 then, ambitious, sharp, determined to prove he was more than the son of a cautious banker. He had just been promoted to residential project manager. Kara, his wife, had big plans too. She wanted space, light, a house in the newer subdivision with stone facades and wide driveways. The mortgage broker told them their approval would be stronger with a co-signer. Logan's credit was decent, but not strong enough for the loan size they wanted. "It's just until I refinance," he assured me. 2 years, maybe 3. I asked for the paperwork. I read every line. Interest rate 3.1%. Adjustable after 5 years, escrow included. Payment just under $4,000 a month. I hesitated. Logan leaned forward and said something I still remember clearly. "I don't want to rent forever, Dad. I want my kids to grow up somewhere solid." Somewhere solid, I signed. When the market heated up in 2020 and 2021, property values climbed fast. Logan talked about equity like it was proof of independence. He upgraded the kitchen, installed new hardwood floors, bought a new SUV. Each time I suggested refinancing, he waved it off. "Not yet," he would say. "Rates will drop again." They didn't. Meanwhile, I kept the auto payment running. I told myself it was support. Temporary. Necessary. But 5 years is not temporary. And silence, I've learned, can slowly turn into permission. By the time that Christmas call came, I had already paid more than $200,000 toward a house I did not live in. What I didn't realize yet was that Logan had made a decision of his own back in 2023. A decision that would change everything once I discovered it. Christmas morning was quiet in my condo. Too quiet. I brewed coffee the way I always did, strong, no sugar, and sat by the window while snow settled over the parking lot. Across town, Logan and Kara were hosting dinner. I knew the house would be warm, lights glowing against the cold. Around noon, I opened my email. There it was. Subject line, simple and indifferent. Payment not processed. No drama, no accusation. Just numbers. I stared at the screen longer than I care to admit. 5 years of routine, broken by a single decision. I told myself I was prepared. Still, my chest felt tight. By the 27th, the first late notice arrived. Polite language, friendly reminder. A late fee of $187 added to the balance. I folded the letter and set it on my desk. That evening, my phone lit up. Logan's name flashed once, then again, then again. I let it ring. The fourth time, I answered. "Dad, what's going on?" His voice wasn't angry yet. It was confused. "I stopped the auto payment," I said. There was a pause, a long one. "You stopped it? Why would you do that?" I took a breath. "Because you said you didn't need me there." "That's not the same thing." "It feels the same." Silence filled the space between us. I could almost hear him calculating, the way I used to in conference rooms. "It's just a delay, right?" he asked finally. "You'll fix it before it gets serious." I didn't answer that directly. "How's your refinance coming?" Another pause. Shorter this time, sharper. "We haven't applied yet." "Why not?" "We're waiting for the right time." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I knew that tone. It was the sound of someone postponing reality. 2 days later, my phone showed 17 missed calls. By New Year's Eve, it was over 30. Kara texted once, "Dad, please call us. This is stressing Logan out." That word caught my attention. Stress, as if the payment had simply slipped through by accident, as if this were a clerical error. On January 3rd, I received a certified envelope addressed to both of us. The language had changed. It was no longer friendly. 30 days past due. Total outstanding balance now included the missed payment and fees. The letter explained what would happen next if the account was not brought current. I drove to the subdivision that afternoon. I did not knock. I simply parked across the street and watched. The Christmas lights were still up. Logan stepped outside to take a call, pacing in the driveway. He looked tired. I saw something else too, something I hadn't noticed before. The SUV in the driveway was newer than I remembered. Temporary tags still on the back window. That was the first crack in the story. When I returned home, I logged into the county property portal. The assessed value had increased. So had the tax estimate. Escrow adjustments would be coming. 5 years of payments. $200,000. And somehow there was never enough margin to refinance. That night, Logan left a voicemail. "Dad, if this hits 60 days, we could be in real trouble. Please don't let it go that far." I listened to that message twice. Then I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out a folder dated August 2019. There are moments in life when you realize you are not just reacting anymore. You are deciding. And what I found inside that folder told me Logan had already made his decision years ago. Inside the folder were copies of everything I had asked Logan to sign in August of 2019. Not a trap, not a threat, just a simple side note, notarized, witnessed, and quietly filed away. At the time I told him, "This protects both of us." He had laughed and said, "Dad, you always think like a banker." Maybe I do. The document stated that if I covered more than 24 consecutive mortgage payments, the assistance would convert into a structured family loan. Principal recorded. Modest interest. Nothing predatory. Just accountability. Logan signed it without reading the second page. That memory stayed with me as the calendar turned to mid-January. 30 days past due had become 40. The bank sent another notice. This one used firmer language. Failure to cure may result in acceleration. Howard Pike called me personally. Richard, he said, his voice lower than usual. This file is about to escalate. I'm aware. Are you planning to bring it current? I looked at the side agreement on my desk. Not this time, he paused. Then you need to understand what that means for both of you. I understood perfectly. That was the problem. 2 evenings later, Logan showed up at my condo. He didn't call first. He just knocked, hard enough that Mrs. Walsh down the hall opened her door to look. When I let him in, he didn't sit. Why are you doing this? He asked. Not angry now, frustrated, confused. I stopped paying, I said evenly. You didn't. That's not fair. Fair? I almost smiled. You asked me to disappear from Christmas. I'm disappearing from the payment. He ran a hand through his hair. This isn't about Christmas. No, I said. It's about 5 years. For a moment, I saw the boy he used to be. Then the man returned. We were going to refinance, he insisted. We just needed the right timing. When was that? He hesitated. Just a second. But I noticed. In my years at the bank, hesitation meant risk. Kara thought we should wait until rates dropped again, he said finally. And then we upgraded the kitchen. It increased the value. How much? He exhaled. $42,000. And the SUV in the driveway? That's irrelevant. No, I said quietly. It isn't. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Real. I never asked you to keep paying forever, Logan said. I know, I answered. But you never asked me to stop. The words landed harder than I expected, on both of us. He paced once across my small living room, looked around at the modest furniture, the worn leather chair, the framed photo of him at 8 years old holding a fishing rod twice his height. You could lose your credit too, he said. You're on the loan. I've survived worse. That wasn't bravado. It was fact. He softened then, just slightly. If this hits 60 days, he said, the bank can move forward. I know. And if it accelerates, I know. He stared at me as if waiting for the moment I would fold, for the instinct to protect him to override everything else. But something had shifted in me since that phone call before Christmas. I'm not your safety net anymore, Logan, I said. I'm your father. He shook his head slowly. You're proving a point. No, I replied. I'm proving a boundary. He left without slamming the door. The next morning, another alert arrived. The account was officially 60 days past due. Total outstanding balance now included 2 payments and fees. Later that afternoon, I received a certified letter marked Notice of Default. That phrase is not emotional. It is procedural, but it carries weight. I placed it beside the side agreement and did something I had not done yet. I calculated the total I had already paid on his behalf. The number was larger than I remembered, much larger. And for the first time, I realized Logan had known exactly what he was doing back in 2023. When I added everything up that night, the number sat on the page like a verdict. $236,400. Principal payments, escrow shortages, property tax adjustments, insurance increases after the hailstorm in 2022. 5 years of quiet support. I stared at the total and felt something colder than anger. Clarity. Back in March of 2023, Logan had asked me to co-sign a home equity line. Just temporary, he said. We're consolidating. I declined. Calmly, a week later, he stopped mentioning money altogether. I remember thinking that was maturity. It wasn't. It was strategy. The notice of default triggered a chain reaction I had expected. Kara called first. Dad, please, she said, her voice thin. This is getting serious. It already was. You could at least talk to Howard and stall it. I have talked to Howard. There was a pause on her end. A shuffle of breath. What did you tell him? The truth. And what's that? That I won't bring it current. Her composure slipped. Do you want us to lose the house? I let that question sit between us. No, I said. I want you to understand it. 2 days later, the Homeowners Association posted a reminder about unpaid dues on the neighborhood portal. Subtle, public. The kind of embarrassment that spreads quietly among upper-middle-class cul-de-sacs. Logan texted me a screenshot. Are you happy now? I didn't respond. Instead, I drove past the house again. The new kitchen lights glowed through the front windows. A contractor truck sat in the driveway. More upgrades. I pulled over and called Howard. Has he contacted you? I asked. Yes, Howard replied. He requested a hardship review. On what grounds? Temporary cash flow disruption. I almost smiled. Logan worked in commercial sales, commission-based. Cash flow disruptions were not accidents. They were choices. Did he submit documents? I asked. Preliminary ones. And? Howard lowered his voice. His reported income this year doesn't match the lifestyle reflected in the loan file. That was the first crack that mattered. Later that week, Logan came to see me again. He looked different this time, tighter around the eyes. They're asking for bank statements, he said. They will. This could affect my credit for years. Yes. You could fix this in one transfer. I know. His jaw clenched. Why won't you? I leaned back in my chair. Because you never planned to refinance. He froze, just slightly. That's not true. In 2023, you applied for a credit line. It was denied due to debt ratio. You didn't tell me. His eyes flickered. There it was. How do you know that? He asked. I still have contacts. Silence again. Heavy, real. He tried a different angle. Dad, you said this was help. You said family supports family. I did, and I have. He ran both hands through his hair. So, this is punishment? No, I answered softly. It's consequence. The word seemed to wound him more than anything else. That evening, I received an email notification from the bank portal. Logan had formally requested loan modification paperwork. That meant documentation, disclosure, exposure. 2 hours later, Kara posted a vague message on social media about financial manipulation and toxic control disguised as help. Friends began commenting. I read every word. I did not reply. Instead, I printed the notarized agreement from August 2019 and placed it beside the default notice. For the first time, I considered enforcing it, not as revenge, as accounting. The following Monday, Howard called again. Richard, there's something else, he said. What? Your son listed you as primary guarantor on an additional unsecured note in 2024. My hand tightened around the phone. I never signed that. I know, Howard said quietly, but your name is on the application. And that was the moment I understood. This was no longer about a missed Christmas invitation. It was about something far deeper and far more deliberate. I drove to the bank the next morning before the doors officially opened. Old habit. I liked walking into quiet lobbies before noise and excuses filled the air. Howard met me in his office. He closed the door carefully. I pulled the unsecured note file, he said. $48,000, dated April 2024. For what purpose? I asked. Listed as home improvement and consolidation. Who verified my signature? Howard hesitated. That told me more than any document. The application was digital, he said. Submitted through the online portal. Your information was pre-filled. My name, my social, my date of birth, all correct. But I never authorized it, I said quietly. I believe you. Belief doesn't erase paperwork. Howard slid a copy across the desk. I studied the e-signature block. The font was slightly misaligned, subtle, almost invisible. Have payments been made? I asked. Minimums. Irregular. The balance has grown. How far past due? 22 days. I leaned back in the chair and let that settle. Mortgage delinquency. Unsecured note. HOA pressure. Public narrative shifting online. This wasn't panic. This was pattern. Has Logan been notified about the forgery implications? I asked. No, Howard said. Not yet. I wanted to speak with you first. I nodded slowly. Good. That afternoon, Logan called again. His tone had changed, less defensive, more urgent. Dad, we need to talk. I agree. Not on the phone. Then come by. He arrived within the hour. Kara did not. When he stepped inside my condo, he looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, structurally, like the weight of numbers had begun pressing on him. What did you tell the bank? He asked immediately. Only what's true, he swallowed. They're asking about an unsecured note. Yes. He paced once across the room, then stopped. That was just temporary, he said. We needed liquidity. And you used my name. It was faster that way. The honesty stunned me more than denial would have. Did you think I wouldn't find out? I thought I could cover it before it mattered. Everything matters, he exhaled sharply. You don't understand the pressure. Kara's parents compare everything. The neighborhood expects a certain image. The market slowed. My commissions dipped. And instead of adjusting, I said evenly, you expanded. He looked at me then with something close to resentment. You've always had stability, he said. You bought your house in the 90s. You don't know what it's like now. I almost laughed at that. Almost. I know exactly what it's like, I said, because I'm the one paying. Silence. For a brief second, his eyes softened. Guilt flickered there, then pride pushed it aside. It wasn't meant to hurt you, he said. That doesn't change what it is. He sank into the chair across from me, shoulders forward, hands clasped. If this becomes fraud, he whispered, it could cost me my license. There it was. Not the house, not the credit, his career. Did Kara know? I asked. He hesitated again, longer this time. She didn't ask questions. That wasn't an answer. I stood and walked to the window. Snow was melting in the parking lot. Slow. Quiet. Here's what's going to happen, I said without turning around. The bank will investigate. If I confirm the signature is unauthorized, they will escalate. You wouldn't, he said quickly. I might. He stood up, panic rising. Dad, please. The word landed differently this time. I need you to understand something, I said, facing him again. You didn't just risk a house. You risked my name. His breathing grew uneven. What do you want? He asked finally. Not angry, not arrogant, afraid. I looked at the folder on my desk, the notarized agreement from 2019. The structured family loan clause. I want accountability, I said. Every dollar documented, every obligation acknowledged. And if I agree, that depends. He stared at me as if waiting for mercy to appear. Instead, I asked the one question he hadn't prepared for. Why did you disinvite me from Christmas, Logan? If you were already using my name to keep the lights on. His face drained of color. And in that silence, I saw the truth begin to surface. Logan didn't answer right away. He sat back down slowly, like a man realizing the room had shifted beneath him. It wasn't just about Christmas, he said at last. His voice was quieter now, stripped of polish. I know, I replied. He looked at the framed photo on my shelf, him at 8, fishing rod too big for his hands. I remembered that day. He'd fallen into the lake trying to impress me. I thought if you weren't there, he continued, it would feel like we were independent. Independent from what? From you. The word hung there. You mean from the man paying your mortgage? I asked calmly. He flinched, not dramatically, just enough. Kara's parents keep asking when we're going to refinance, he said. They assume we own it outright. They think the monthly transfers are just support. And they think you're controlling. I almost smiled at that. Almost. So, disinviting me made that easier? He rubbed his forehead. It was supposed to be temporary. Just one holiday without the tension. Tension, I repeated softly. What he meant was exposure. He didn't want me at that table because I was the reminder, the ledger, the quiet fact behind the illusion. And the unsecured note? I asked. That was panic, he said quickly. We were behind on credit cards. The kitchen upgrade went over budget. The market dipped. I thought I could flip 2 accounts and cover it. With my name? Yes. There it was again. No denial now. The honesty should have felt like progress. It didn't. Did Kara know you used my information? I asked. He hesitated. She knew we needed liquidity. That's not what I asked. Another pause. She didn't stop me. I nodded slowly. That was answer enough. My phone buzzed on the table. Howard. I answered on speaker. Richard, he said. I need to inform you that the unsecured note has triggered an internal compliance review. The signature discrepancy has been flagged. Logan's head snapped toward the phone. What does that mean? He asked. It means, Howard continued carefully, if the guarantor denies authorization, this becomes a formal investigation. Logan stood up abruptly. You called him? I told him the bank would investigate, I said evenly. You're destroying me. No, I replied. You put yourself here. Howard cleared his throat softly. There's another development. What now? Logan muttered. The mortgage file shows a deferred escrow adjustment from 2022 that was never corrected. Taxes increased significantly. The shortfall is larger than originally calculated. How much? I asked. Approximately $19,000. The room went still. That's impossible, Logan said. We've been paying. You've been paying minimums, Howard corrected gently. The deficit rolled forward. I closed my eyes for a moment. 5 years of payments, escrow fluctuations, side loans, social pressure, image maintenance. The numbers were not accidents, they were avoidance. Howard continued, if the mortgage reaches 90 days delinquent, the bank will accelerate the note. Logan turned to me, desperation finally breaking through. Dad, if this accelerates, we lose everything. Not everything, I said quietly. What does that mean? I walked to my desk and opened the folder from August 2019. The notarized agreement, the clause converting long-term assistance into documented debt. You signed this, I said, sliding it across the table. He stared at the pages. That was symbolic. It was legal. His breathing quickened. You're not going to enforce that, he said. I might. Then what? You take the house? That depends on whether you choose responsibility or collapse. His eyes burned with something between anger and fear. You'd make me bankrupt to prove a point? I would make you accountable to protect my name. He stepped back like I had struck him. For the first time since this began, he looked small. And then he said something I didn't expect. I was going to tell Kara the truth after the refinance, he whispered. I just needed time. You had 5 years. Silence. The weight of it pressed in. Finally, he asked the question that mattered. What happens now? I looked at the escrow deficit, the unsecured note, the default timeline. What happens, I said slowly, depends on what you're willing to put in writing. And that was the moment he realized. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was structuring. That night I did not sleep. Numbers kept moving in my head. Mortgage balance, escrow deficit, unsecured note, interest compounding quietly in the background like a metronome marking failure. At 7 the next morning, my phone vibrated. Kara. I let it ring once before answering. Dad, she said, no greeting. What are you doing? I'm protecting my name. You're humiliating us. No, I replied softly. The paperwork is. She exhaled sharply. Logan told me about the agreement. The one from 2019? Yes. And? He said you never intended to enforce it. I leaned back in my chair. Intentions change when facts change. There was a pause. Did you really call the bank about fraud? She asked. I confirmed I did not authorize that note. That could ruin him. He used my identity. Silence. For a moment, her voice lost its edge. He was scared. So was I. That seemed to unsettle her. You? She asked. Yes, when I realized my social security number was used without permission. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she said something else. My parents think you're trying to take the house. I'm trying to stop pretending. That afternoon, Howard sent formal notice of the compliance review. It required Logan to appear in person with documentation. By now, the mortgage was 75 days delinquent. HOA fines had been added. Late utilities had triggered warning letters. Pressure was no longer private. Logan came by again, but this time he didn't stand tall. He sat down without being asked. They froze the unsecured line, he said. I expected that. And they're reviewing my employment disclosures. Yes. He stared at the floor. I might lose my job. There it was, the bottom edge of the cliff. You told me you were independent, I said gently. This is what independence looks like. He didn't argue. Instead, he said something that surprised me. I didn't invite you to Christmas because Kara's father kept asking when you'd move out of the picture. Move out how? He thinks you hover, that you control decisions. He said a real man handles his own mortgage. I absorbed that quietly. And you believed him? I believed I needed to prove something. By erasing me, his jaw tightened. I didn't think you'd stop paying. That was the truth beneath everything. He thought my love was automatic, guaranteed, perpetual. That evening, the bank portal updated again. The mortgage had officially entered pre-acceleration status. 90 days was approaching. Howard called. If the arrears are not cured within 10 days, he said, the note will accelerate. And if it accelerates? I asked. Full balance due. Logan heard the words through the speaker. His shoulders sagged. Dad, please, he said quietly, tell me what to do. For the first time, there was no pride in his voice, no defensiveness, just exhaustion. I placed the notarized agreement on the table between us. You acknowledge the family loan, I said. In writing, you acknowledge the unsecured note misuse. In writing, you agree to structured repayment. And if I don't, I pursue the fraud review. He swallowed. That means criminal exposure. Yes. He closed his eyes. Kara texted him twice while we sat there. I could see the screen light up. He didn't answer. I don't know if I can fix all of this, he admitted. You can start. He looked at me, and for a second I saw the 8-year-old again. Then he said something that cut deeper than any accusation. If I sign, does that mean you still want me as your son? I did not answer immediately, because the truth was, I wasn't sure whether I was protecting him or protecting myself. And just as he reached for the pen, my phone rang again. Howard. His voice this time was different. Richard, you need to know something before any agreement is signed. The pause that followed told me this wasn't just about missed payments anymore. I stepped into the hallway to take Howard's call. His voice was measured, but tighter than usual. Richard, compliance expanded the review. The unsecured note wasn't the only irregularity. I felt my spine straighten. What else? There was a temporary income inflation on the mortgage modification request submitted last week. In plain English, he overstated projected commissions. I closed my eyes for a moment. How significant? Enough that if verified, it constitutes misrepresentation. Behind me, through the door, I could hear Logan pacing. The sound of leather soles against hardwood, restless, uneasy. Has this been escalated? I asked. Not yet, Howard replied, but it will be if the file proceeds. Thank you, I said quietly. When I walked back into the room, Logan stopped pacing. What did he say? I didn't sit immediately. I let the silence settle first. You inflated projected income on the modification application. His face drained. It was an estimate. It was a fabrication. It was a projection, he insisted. Everyone does it. Not everyone signs legal documents. He looked away. They were going to deny it otherwise, he muttered. So you gambled again. He exhaled sharply. You don't understand the pressure. I understand risk, I said. I also understand consequence. He sank into the chair and pressed his hands to his temples. If they flag that as misrepresentation, I could lose my position. Yes. And if the fraud review continues, yes. He looked at me then with something raw in his eyes. I never meant for this to go this far. That's the problem, I said softly. You never meant. You never planned. You reacted. He was silent. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, If I sign the acknowledgement, will you stop the fraud review? That depends. On what? On whether you disclose everything. He hesitated. There's nothing else. I watched his breathing, quick, shallow. Logan. Another pause. The escrow shortage, he said slowly. I redirected 2 payments last year. To what? To cover a private loan. What private loan? He swallowed. Kara's father lent us $25,000 when the kitchen went over budget. And? He wanted it repaid before year end. So you used escrow funds? Yes. The admission hung in the air. That's why the deficit ballooned, I said quietly. He nodded. And you thought I wouldn't notice. I thought you wouldn't look. There it was again. He built his life on the assumption that I would keep paying and never examine. My phone buzzed once more. A notification from the bank portal. Pre-acceleration status confirmed. 90 days past due. The formal letter would issue within 48 hours. Logan stared at the folder on my desk. What happens if it accelerates? He asked again. The full balance becomes due. That's over $400,000. Yes. And if we can't pay? Foreclosure proceedings begin. He closed his eyes. Kara called him. He declined the call. I was trying to protect my image, he whispered. You were protecting an illusion. Silence. Finally, he looked up at me with something I hadn't seen before. Humility. What do you want me to do? He asked. Tomorrow morning, I said slowly. You will come with me to the bank. For what? To sit in front of Howard, in person. You will disclose the unsecured note, the income inflation, the escrow diversion. He stared at me like I had suggested execution. That could end everything. Yes. And if I refuse? I met his eyes. Then I confirmed the fraud complaint. His jaw tightened. You'd choose the bank over your son. No, I said quietly. I'm choosing truth over pretense. The room felt smaller. He looked at the pen again, the notarized agreement still untouched. And if I go tomorrow, he asked, what do you do? I restructure the debt, I replied. Formally, you repay every dollar, on record, over time. And the mortgage? I may cure it. May? That depends on what I hear in that office. He sat very still. For the first time since Christmas, he looked like a man standing at the edge of a decision rather than hiding from one. Slowly, he picked up the pen. But just as he pressed it to paper, Kara's name flashed again across his phone. This time he answered, and whatever she said on the other end made him freeze mid-signature. He looked up at me, eyes wide. "Dad, there's something you don't know." Logan lowered the phone slowly. "What is it?" I asked. He swallowed before answering. "Kara's father called the bank this morning." My chest tightened, but my voice stayed level. "For what purpose?" "He tried to negotiate on our behalf. He told them you were mentally declining, that you didn't understand the paperwork you signed." For a moment, I didn't move. "Did he say that formally?" "Yes." "To whom?" "To someone in loan services. He said he was protecting us from financial abuse." The room felt very still. "And Kara?" I asked quietly. She didn't stop him. That was the final fracture. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the desk. I simply nodded once. "Good," I said. Logan blinked. "Good?" "Yes, because now this is documented." He looked confused. "I've worked with Howard for 15 years, I continued. "If someone alleges cognitive decline on a borrower, compliance must verify. They review medical records. They freeze discretionary negotiations." His face shifted. "You're saying—" "I'm saying your father-in-law just escalated this beyond embarrassment." Logan sat down slowly. "They think you'll fold," he said. "They think I'm fragile." He studied me carefully then. "You're not," he admitted. "No." I picked up my coat. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To the bank." He stood quickly. "I'm coming." Howard received us in the conference room this time, not his private office. A compliance officer sat beside him, a woman named Denise Clark, mid-50s, precise. "Mr. Butterworth," she said to me, "we received a call questioning your financial capacity." "I'm aware." "Are you under guardianship?" "No." "Do you have documentation confirming cognitive competence?" I smiled faintly. "I have quarterly investment statements outperforming the S&P. She didn't smile back. Logan shifted in his chair. Howard cleared his throat. "We also need clarification regarding the unsecured note and escrow diversion," he said. Logan inhaled deeply. "I misrepresented projected income," he said, "and I used escrow funds to repay a private loan." Denise wrote something down. "And the guarantor signature?" she asked. "I submitted it without authorization," Logan said. The words landed in the room like a dropped weight. Denise looked at me. "Do you wish to pursue fraud charges?" Logan's breathing quickened. I let the silence stretch. "No," I said finally. "Not if this is corrected formally." Logan's shoulders dropped slightly, but Denise did not relax. "Correction requires restitution and documented restructuring," she said. "The mortgage is 91 days delinquent. Acceleration notice is prepared." Howard slid the document forward. "Full balance due within 30 days." Logan stared at the number. "This can't happen," he whispered. "It can," Denise replied. I folded my hands on the table. "I am prepared to cure the arrears," I said slowly, "under one condition." All eyes turned to me. "Logan signs a formal debt acknowledgement for the full amount I've paid on his behalf. Principal and interest. Structured repayment over 10 years. Payroll deduction if necessary." Logan's head snapped toward me. "That's 400,000. 236,000 plus escrow deficit plus unsecured balance," I corrected calmly. "Approximately 305,000. Denise looked between us. "If signed," she said, "the bank can withdraw acceleration." Howard nodded. Logan stared at the paper in front of him. "You're making me indebted to my own father," he said quietly. "No," I answered. "You already were." Silence filled the conference room. After a long moment, he picked up the pen. His hand trembled once, then steadied. He signed. Denise collected the documents. Acceleration will be suspended pending funds transfer, she said. Howard met my eyes. Are you proceeding with the cure? I looked at Logan. Not the man trying to impress neighbors, not the son avoiding truth, just a tired human being facing consequence. Yes, I said. I will cure it. Logan exhaled as if he had been underwater. But relief did not erase reality. As we left the bank, he stopped in the parking lot. I'll pay you back, he said. I know. And Christmas. We'll talk about that later. He nodded slowly. But just as I reached my car, my phone buzzed again. A message from Kara. 3 words. We're selling. I stared at the screen. Because curing the mortgage didn't mean the story was finished. It meant something new was about to begin. Kara did not mean they were selling the house. She meant they were selling the image. Within 3 weeks, the SUV disappeared from the driveway. The contractor trucks stopped coming. The holiday lights came down early this year. Logan called me on a Sunday afternoon. We're listing in the spring, he said. Smaller place, different district. That's wise. We've cut expenses. I know. He paused. I transferred the first payment, he added quietly. I had already seen it. Payroll deduction. Automatic. Clean. $3,000. Not symbolic. Real. The formal debt agreement sat in my filing cabinet now. Structured, transparent. No ambiguity. The unsecured note was closed and converted. The escrow deficit cured. The fraud review marked resolved with restitution. But consequence does not end when paperwork does. It lingers in conversations, in tone, in the way someone looks at you across a table. 2 weeks after the bank meeting, Logan asked if I would come for dinner. No holiday, no performance, just a Wednesday night. I drove there slowly. The house felt different, quieter, smaller somehow. Kara opened the door. She did not smile immediately. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded. Dinner was simple. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, no wine display, no show. At one point, Logan cleared his throat. I told her everything, he said. Kara looked down at her plate. My father shouldn't have made that call, she said. It wasn't his place. No, I agreed. And it wasn't yours to carry this alone, she added, looking at Logan. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no tears, just honesty, which is harder. Halfway through dinner, Logan said something I will not forget. I thought strength meant never needing help, he said, but I was just hiding dependence. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, strength is being able to account for what you owe, not just money. Trust, respect, presence. Over the next months, the payments continued, on time. No reminders, no excuses. We did not return to the way things were before Christmas. We returned to something quieter, more truthful. Logan calls me now before making financial decisions, not to ask permission, to disclose. Kara and I are still careful with each other, but careful is not cold. And the house? They sold it in late summer, took less profit than they once imagined, moved into something sustainable. I did not attend the closing. But I received a copy of the settlement statement. Because this time, everything was transparent. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. Support without boundaries becomes entitlement. And love without accountability becomes silent resentment. We do not protect our children by absorbing every consequence. We protect them by teaching them to face it. Thank you for staying with me through this memory. If you're watching tonight, tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. I always find it grounding to know how far these stories travel. And when you've reached this final chapter, rate this story from 1 to 10. Your feedback helps me shape the next one with even more depth and honesty. Please note, this story contains fictionalized elements created for educational and reflective purposes. If it moved you even slightly, consider subscribing to Final Act Revenge. Another story is waiting for you on your screen right now. YouTube believes you'll appreciate it. Until next time, take care of your health, drink water, rest well. And never forget, boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity.